I actually send out what I call the smile challenge, and I say go and tell people when you meet them, say, have a spring in your step, and get up one day and just have a great attitude, and just make a decision that you're going to make three people smile today.
Hey, Uncommon Leaders, welcome back. This is the Uncommon Leader Podcast, and I'm your host, John Gallagher. Today, I'm excited to have a great guest on the show, Gordon MacFarlane, a renowned performance mindset coach, an international best-selling author, and we're here to talk about his latest book, Communicate to Connect, The Power of Words. We won't get started on that right away. I think one of the things that's fascinating as I get through I was telling Gordon before we hit the record button, this is the third professional Canadian hockey player that I've had on the podcast as well. So I'm looking forward to doing some comparisons there, but I know the first two so far have been very exciting guests and had great stories to tell. And I know that Gordon, I've read through his book and listened to a couple of his podcasts, got a unique ability to inspire and motivate individuals. And when you come up in a tough sport like that, that's bound to happen. But through his work, he's been able to help countless people improve, their communication skills, build stronger relationships, and achieve some remarkable results. So I look forward to hearing how he's done that as well. So Gordon MacFarlane, welcome to the Uncommon Leader Podcast, friend.
Well, thanks, John. Appreciate you having me here. Always nice to be
Absolutely.
somewhere.
Yeah, it's nice to be somewhere, right? And
Yeah,
it's good to
yeah.
be one. It's good to have our
With,
conversation.
with a purpose, right? With a purpose, not just a
That's right.
wandering generality, as Zig Ziglar used to say.
Absolutely. I loved reading some of your books and some of the folks you called out. I can't wait to hear some of the people who have influenced your writing and your coaching styles through your career. But I'll start you off the same way I start all my first-time guests. I'll ask you to tell me a story from your childhood that still impacts who you are as a person or as a leader today.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm in the throes of writing my next book and just about finished it. It's called Performance Influencer. And how do you become a performance influencer? It's really about leadership. And leadership is near and dear to my heart. I was never really raised to be a leader. But I later learned in life, as I started to understand personalities and character, that my personality it's kind of drawn to leadership. I'm a DI personality in the DISC model of human behavior. So I have very strong tendencies for leadership and wanting to be in charge and getting things done. And I didn't know that. I was always being suppressed as a child. And the big thing was about, I was always talking, right? And I remember my mom and dad talking about people having what they called the gift of the gab. And that's actually going to be one of my next books after Performance Influencer. It's called The Gift of the Gab, which is going to be my story. And so it's interesting that you asked me that. I put a part of that a piece into my Performance Influencer preface to introduce people to who I am, because I think it plays a big part, John. The gift of the gab was always seen by my parents as something negative. Oh, don't go near them. They've got the gift of the gab. They're going to talk your ear off, right? And so I always saw or heard that the gift of the gab was like a curse. It certainly wasn't a blessing. So we had this neighbor that was clearly a very lonely woman, but very deep into the alcohol on a regular basis. And she would come by and talk to my grandfather and my dad, and they could never get rid of her. And finally, when they went inside, okay, we got to go, and they would come in and say, oh man, does she ever have the gift of the gab? And so I thought they hated Mrs. Bissell, right? They see her come, they scuff into the house. And so as I started to hear this from people, I met this guy by the name of Gord Shipley when I started to get into business and sales. And he was a hockey guy, and we met talking about hockey because I started coaching. And Gord said to me, he says, hey, Gord, you ever consider sales, a career in sales? You've really got the gift of the gab. And I sat back a little bit and I went, what? I got the gift of the gab. And he says, no, he says, why are you reacting like that? I said, so I told him the story of where I was in terms of what my thinking was. He goes, no. Why do you think they call it a gift? It's the ability to be able to communicate as a gift, right? Your ability to fluently communicate and clearly and effectively, but you have to be trained. And so he says, I have a guy that wants to, that would be maybe interested in hiring you as a salesperson, and he can start to train you in the art of professional sales. So I allowed him to do that, to introduce me to this guy. And one thing led to another, John. The gift of the gab led me to being trained under the Dale Carnegie training methodology, which I became later an instructor, which later led to me basically becoming a leader and becoming a speaker as well as doing other things that were outside of the realm of my coaching career in hockey, my business career, my sales career, my speaking career. It was all through the gift of the gab, which I thought was a negative, but someone actually taught me and turned it around into a positive. So pretty cool story.
No, I love that as a story. And the gift of gab, I don't think that's wrong. First of all, DI, I'm an SC, so we'll get along perfectly, right? In terms of complementary skills, in terms of looking at
Absolutely.
this. I love using the DISC personality profile, as a way of understanding. In fact, I just had a coaching call with someone earlier today talking about, where our approach with regards to our tendencies or our behavior profile that comes out of there doesn't work with everyone else. We got to understand how they are and go
Exactly.
forward. Hey, this actually leads right into one of the things I loved about that I read through your book, Communicate to Connect, and that's the platinum rule. Tell me about the platinum rule. Everybody knows the golden rule. Tell me about the platinum rule.
I love that one too, because it was, I learned through life, and we all learn through life, right? We all, treat people the way you want to be treated, right? And if you're kind and considerate, you're going to get that back, right? Well, the reality is I got taught a lesson about that same thing. The platinum rule is teach people the way they want to be treated. But in order to do that, you need to understand who they are. And so the DISC model of human behavior, which I'm certified in with Dr. Robert Roman of Atlanta, Georgia, we learned how to really understand and assess personality. Personality is just a door opener, John. What personality allows us to see is the true character. Because I get asked this question all the time. What's the difference between personality and character? Well, personality is who you are. Character is what you do with who you are, right? And that's manifested in two ways, attitude and behavior. So we don't see personality when we look at a person. Say we meet them for the first time. You and I meet in the street, or we meet at a hockey game, or we meet in a company setting or a conference. And you actually see my attitude and behavior, which leads to your judgment or understanding of what my character might be, which then will lead to maybe understanding, okay, I think this guy's probably outgoing. He's probably like a DI type personality. See what I mean? So there's a step process of knowing. Now what you want to try to do is match up the basic need of those personalities, right? And that's where the gold and the platinum rule comes in. Treat people the way they want to be treated. If you can ascertain what their personality and character is through their attitude and behavior, the recognition points that we give as part of the coach Communicate to Connect book, you now have a tool set to be able to identify and clearly communicate to their basic need, which is leaning towards what they want. If you can help people get what they want, as Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough other people get what they want, you get what you want.
Coach Gord, another fine name as I started to do a little bit of research about you. I'd love that as well. And I happen to believe so much in that platinum rule that we don't really want to treat people the way we want to be treated. We want to treat them the way they want to be treated. Whether we're misinterpreting how that's said or not in terms of the golden rule, I don't think there was ever any ill
I think
intent.
there's a number of
I
different
just
ways
think
you
the
can say
platinum
it,
rule
John.
takes, what's that?
There's a number of different ways you can say it. So I
Yeah, I
think
just think the platinum
as
rule,
long as
though,
the
is one of
premise is
those.
understood.
Yeah, it's absolutely one that recognizes that it's not about us. It's a servant mindset
Mm.
that we have, that we care for others, and you talk about that in your book as well. So let's go there. Let's go right into your book. I think your story, and when I think about that, and I'll touch on this, even in the books you have coming out, The Gift of the Gap. So I look forward to hearing about that, and maybe we can talk again on the podcast as you bring that one out. But it's a matter of saying, ultimately, we are most powerfully positioned to help the person that we used to be, and you're going to be able to help people, Coach Gord, that have been in the situation that you've been in as you've grown in your leadership. And I think that's really exciting. And certainly through our story, that becomes so powerful and impact. Now, you wrote this book, Communicate to Connect, The Power of Words. Who did you write it for, and why was it the right time to write it now?
Another really good question. And, when you're writing a book, you and I have both got so much experience with the people that we've met and the places we've gone and the things that we've seen to try to articulate that in a book that's not too overwhelming. We call these the micro books, 100 pages, 110 pages. They're not big, massive books, but I think it's important when you write a small book like this that you give people enough meat to chew on that they're satisfied with the content. And to me, it's when you're talking about communicating to connect, it's a broad subject, right? And the three people that I've had the pleasure and the ability to connect with are coaches in sports, right? I'm a sports guy. I've been a hockey coach for over 40 years. at very high levels, elite levels, university, semi-pro, and amateur hockey. And as well, leadership. I've been training leaders since 1991 officially as a leadership coach. And of course, parents. My wife and I are parents to four beautiful daughters, and they're all married now and have children of their own. We have 11 grandkids. So we've been together
Wow.
42 years. And so I think that, our ability to communicate, to connect as coaches, as leaders, and as parents is instrumental in shaping the future of the people who follow us. It's about a legacy effect, right? And so I think it's incumbent upon us as coaches, leaders, and parents that we provide different outlets of information. Knowledge is power. And so if you consider that the knowledge and information that you share with people can impact them suggestively for a lifetime. Wouldn't that be cool to have someone down the road saying, "Hey, I learned this from John Gallagher," or "I learned this from Coach Gord." And I've already got that happening now where I have people calling me up and saying, "Hey, coach, I've got kids now, and I remember what you told me when you coached me. I tried that with them, and it actually works." Going, well, yeah, it actually works, right? So it's a blessing to be able to get that kind of feedback, John. So to me, I think the people that I would have the most impact on people, exponentially would be coaches, would be leaders in companies or in organizations, and as well parents. I don't think parents get enough credit for or I guess recognition for the work that they need to do to shape their kids. The first 7 years of life is the most formative years, and that's where we have the biggest responsibility as parents is to form the morals and ethics and understandings of our kids. So how to properly be a good citizen, how to be polite, how to be respectful and understanding, to respect authority, right? And there's not enough of that in today's world. I think parents have been left to kind of fight on their own. And I'd like this to be a book where, parents could pick it up and learn the basics of communicating to your kids to show them that they're valuable, that they have worth. And I love going through that process of teaching people it's not just what you do, it's who you are. It's a combination of both. In fact, I'd like to believe that it's more important to determine who you are rather than what you do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Following you, and I love the analogy you're using with not just the analogy of parents, but certainly you mentioned whether they get enough credit or they not enough reward for the challenge that it is to raise young adults in
Yeah.
today's world. Whatever that means for us in terms of going through it, and that sometimes as leaders of organizations or as coaches, whether it's sporting team coaches or whatever that is of that generation as well, it's a challenge. And the more you can overlap that and learn those techniques to be able to use in more than one space, I think that's pretty powerful. So let's talk about that in terms of the leaders, and we'll bleed it over into parents to coaches as well. Business leaders, it's a big part of who listens to the Uncommon Leader podcast, but they are parents and they are sports coaches as well. I can think of different people coming to my mind right now as I think about those that are listening to the podcast. Is that what are some of the things early on that as you coach them that help you to recognize that they're running into barriers that they have to overcome? What are some of the barriers that you have to help those individuals deal with when you're helping in their mindset?
Well, mindset, I think, is a big thing, right? If you look at, let's just for a moment, let's just talk about the disc model of human behavior and mindset. Let's talk about those two pieces, right? The disc model of human behavior talks about four basic personalities: D, I, S, and C. Two are outgoing, two are reserved, two are task, and two are people oriented, right? People related. So I go through that very briefly in the book. Obviously, I could write a whole book on that, and I have. So there's understanding the personalities, but there's also understanding mindset. When you talk about the DIS and C, which I cover in the book, so there it is, there's the model,
There it is.
DIS and
Yep.
C, right? So the DIS and C model, now you have to consider growth mindset and fixed mindset. And it's interesting when you ask the question, well, there are two personalities that lean more towards, they tend to be more open, what they call growth mindset. And there are two personalities in the disc model that tend to be, not always, but tend to be more fixed mindset. And so when you ask that question to people, you get quite a few interesting answers. And so those are two areas that are foundational in learning how to communicate, to connect. If you understand personality, but if you also understand the mindset to where people are coming from, that's very empowering. That's very empowering as a leader, as a coach, and as a parent, right? So if you know that your child or your athletes or your people who work for you are more fixed mindset, they need more information, they need more time to make decisions. You can't be saying, come on, I need some answers, right? If you push them, you're actually going to be pushing them away rather than bringing them in. So there are certain people that are fixed mindset. They like things to be proven. They like things to be validated. They want time to make their decisions, right? You have to decide, well, who are those people? Well, those are the more reserved personalities. They're more the C's and the S's. They tend to be, not always, but they
Hmm.
tend to be leaning more to the fixed mindset realm. The growth mindset people are obviously the D's and the I's. They're just like, they're go, go, go. Like it's all like, hey, let's grow, let's go, let's be good, let's be enthusiastic, let's be exciting, right? Let's be energetic, right? That's not for everybody, though. That's so you have to understand there's a balance. Now, we do possess all four of those personalities within each person, some to a greater, some to a lesser degree. So I'd like to make that very clear that we have all four in us. I have CNS to a smaller degree. You have CNS to a larger degree. That's why you and I would probably work well together. In fact, I coached with a gentleman for 11 seasons, which was an amazing balance for me. Probably the most successful 11 years of my coaching career was with this guy by the name of Lloyd Switzer. I called him Butch. And Butch was a CS, I was a DI, but we were the perfect complement to that disc model of human behavior. And in the 11 years, John, we won 8 championships together, 5 in a row one time. Like with this, it was incredible. The synergy and the connectivity that we had in the area of communication. We know who he could communicate better with and who I could communicate better with. When it was time for me to push the agenda, when it was time for him to just calm things down. So it's really about understanding your ability to communicate to the basic needs of the personalities, but also understanding growth and fixed mindset. Very important part of the equation.
He's that's awesome that Gordon. Another story comes to my mind. I love when we can have specific stories that we learned and shared. When I was in my manufacturing days as a leader and as an SC, the gentleman that I worked with closest in terms of driving the success for our organization was a high D as well on that chart. And he and I, and it took us a while. It wasn't easy. It took us a while to
Right.
figure out how we could complement each other rather than compete with each other. And ultimately, once we figured that out, I believe it was something that led us to the best performing division in the industry. So
I have a
knowing those
question for you,
individuals and
John, on
working with
that
them.
subject. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
In that scenario, do you feel it was a lot easier for you to adapt to him or him to adapt to you?
Oh wow. I mean, it's a great question. I think the you know no, you can't ask me a question. No, just kidding. I think it's probably I'll say it's a higher requirement of SCs to maybe do a little adapting to the D. Having said that, look, what I really believe is that once folks recognize it and are aware of it, is that it's an energy level that it takes to kind of play in the sandbox with the different personality profiles.
Well
D's
said.
work really well together in terms of the energy that they can generate. But if they're not careful, they're going to turn around. They're going to see just a dust bomb behind them because they've overrun everybody to get there and didn't take anybody with them. And so
All
there's
these
an
dead
energy
bodies in their
level to,
wake.
I'm sorry? Yeah, the
All
wake,
these dead
right?
bodies. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? I mean, that's what they're worried about. If you turn around, there's nobody there, you're just taking a walk. You're not really leading anybody. And so to understand that it takes a little more energy to go into each one of those quadrants really to work is an
Yeah.
awareness that's there. So I think that's more in terms of moving toward or others is the awareness that exists that you
Huge.
must be ready to go.
Well, I talk about that in the book as well, John. I talk about the 3 levels of my understanding of the communicate to connect model is awareness is number one.
Hmm.
Empowerment is number two, and then application is number three. But just to go back to my question for you, is that just so you know, your personality, leading with the S personality, is the most adaptable personality of all the four. So your ability to adapt to him would have been easier for you than it would have been for him. Although if results was what you were both looking for, he would be all over that. He would be all over that. Right.
I
So
think we
your
could write a book
supportive
on that story.
style would
You
be a
could
very
probably
good
help us there.
complement. Yeah, it would be very complimentary.
You probably could have helped us there, no doubt about it. So you talk about things they got to do, right? And one of those things you talked about in your book are the 3 habits for making better connections inside of this space as leaders and moving from communicating to connecting. Reciprocity, consistency, and then the third one is the one I want you to talk about. Let the sun shine out. Tell me a little bit about let the sun shine out. You can talk about reciprocity and consistency as well, but I want to hear about that one specifically.
Well, I think a lot of people don't understand reciprocity, right? And it's something that, again, I'm not going to go too deeply in that. I want to answer your question, but to me, reciprocity is an important key to being a person of influence. You have to reciprocate, right? There has to be a reciprocal value to any relationship that you have. It's not always take, take, take. It's give and take. In fact, you mentioned something earlier, and I commend you for it when you talk about servant leadership. That is one of the key areas that I focus on in leadership is to teach my leaders to become more servant minded, to be able to serve others in a way that they want to be served. And so it's a humbling experience to be able to learn that lesson to be a servant leader. And going back to Zig Ziglar's expression, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. I found that to be true when I started to implement that and practice that because I'm a very high DI. My S and my C are below the midline quadrants. My C is I have like 3% C. So my ability to be organized is something that I have to really work at. I realize that it's necessary because there's a good contingent in business and in coaching that have a lot of C in them. So I have to be able to connect with them. But to me, the biggest thing when you're going to make connections with people is your ability to at least smile, right? I don't think we smile enough. And I think I'm talking about teeth showing smile, not just a little grin. But the power of a smile is so amazing. And I've learned to do this when I was in Carnegie. And I remember this young guy that would come up and he would beam, he would smile from ear to ear all the time. And he talked about the smile being so contagious. He says, I smile at people everywhere I go. Sometimes I don't even say words. I just show up and smile. And you know what they end up doing? They end up smiling back. They might think I'm crazy, right? And they say, what are you smiling so much about? I says, I'm not sure. But he says, it sure made you smile, right? And so the whole idea of being able to smile is I actually send out what I call the smile challenge, and I say go and tell people when you meet them, say have a spring in your step, and get up one day and just have a great attitude, and just make a decision that you're going to make three people smile today. And the way to do that is just to say good morning very cheerfully. Hey, good morning, John, and have a smile. Typically, what will happen is not all the time, but I would say in the high 90 percentile, you're going to get someone to say, well, good morning. And they'll have a little, they may only have just a grin. And I go, hey, that's a great smile. I'm going to tell you this. Every single person, and there's not one, I've tried this hundreds and hundreds of times. Not one person has been able to not smile back, even greater than they did before. So it's really kind of a fun challenge. And I said, look, take on the smile challenge. Find three people to help just say good morning to them with high energy. Hey, good morning. How are you today? And smile. And they're going to say, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. And they'll have a little smile. Hey, that's a great smile. Instantly, their smile will grow. Instantly, their smile will grow. So we have the ability to allow people to smile. I think that everybody has a way to become happy, but you got to let the sunshine out. Whatever sunshine or happiness that drives you and that makes you feel good, that's got to come out. My wife's a very serious person. She's a DC personality and she's Italian. So the
That's
reality
dangerous.
is,
DCs are dangerous. I mean,
yeah, she's got a sharp edge. She's tougher than I am, John, for sure. But you know what really softens her up? Grandkids. Grandkids will really soften up a DC
mm,
Italian nonna. Right. So I have no chance. If it's between the grandkids and me, I lose every time. But I say, in the early part of our marriage and our relationship, I would give her, say, a gift, or her parents would give her a gift. And like they say, aren't you happy? Don't you like your gift? And she would tell me, she says, well, when my parents ask me that, I don't understand because I'm beaming inside. I said, yeah, but your face doesn't show it.
mm.
Right? You got to let your face like show it. And so sometimes I told her that one time in our early part of our marriage, and I didn't see her for 2 weeks. I said, you got to smile more. I didn't see her for 2 weeks, and then the swelling went down on this side, and I
Yeah,
could
right
see her.
there you go. That's a good hockey metaphor right there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, got
the
to be. And
cross
she was a
check.
hockey player too, so. But I think letting the sunshine is an important piece. I think we all have a little bit of sunshine within us. We have to strive to find what that sunshine is, find what that happiness is, and let it come out. Let people see the happy side of you. Let people see the good side of you that allows people to feel that energy, that sunshine and energy that people need that, John. We need more energy in the lives of the people around us. And that's a good way to communicate, to connect. People connect with a smile much more than they do with a frown.
Loves that. Love that as a finisher. Let the sun shine out as you go forward. You mentioned we talked about obviously you've been a hockey coach, hockey player, successful at multiple levels. What's the one lesson probably that you've taken away from sports that still impacts your coaching style today? I'm a big fan of sports and using sports analogies all the way through. Absolutely. You see the Tony
Yeah.
Dungy book behind me and their leadership styles, but what's a lesson you've taken away that's been impactful?
Well, it's there's many things that I've learned from sports. One of them is teamwork, and I was working with Notre Dame, the men's hockey team, and the great pleasure of working with Jeff Jackson and his coaching staff and Andy and they're such a powerful organization, just to have the blessing of working with them for 6 or 7 years that I worked,
Mm.
prior to COVID. And we were blessed, and not too many people can talk about having two Notre Dame rings, right? So we won two
Wow,
back-to-back championships.
fantastic.
So yeah, that's kind of cool. So I've got several rings that I've been a part of championship teams and helped them to earn those positions. But when you work with teams that are so good and so, I mean, many of those young athletes are playing in the National Hockey League now, and I follow their careers, and we still connect and we still talk. But to me, in the sports world, when they talk about, well, if you've got the most skilled player, you've got to pick them. And I said to Andy in one meeting, I said, Andy, not always. I said you have to be very careful of the character, attitude, and behavior you're bringing into your team right now. What if their character, attitude, and behavior is not cohesive with the current culture that you have with your hockey club? That becomes a divided culture. When you have a divided culture, that's very, very difficult to bring into back into harmony. And so I think yes, you do want the best player for sure. But let's face it, when Dr. Rome won a World Series with the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is why I got so interested in working with him, right? He wasn't a baseball player, but he helped the Arizona Diamondbacks win the World Series by using the disc model of human behavior because it wasn't about talent. They're all really good baseball players, but what they wanted, Dan Mitchell from the Atlanta Braves previous was brought out to Arizona, and he said, "We got to bring Dr. Rome." And so they use the model of human behavior to select that team, not just on skill alone, but on character, attitude, and behavior through their personality. And so I think we as coaches put way too much weight and emphasis on skill and ability. And there are many, many teams in hockey, in baseball, in basketball. We've seen it before. They've got all kinds of talent beyond recognition. It's like, wow, this is such a talent. You look at their team on paper and you say, man, that is such a talented team, but they are not able to win a championship because talent alone doesn't win championships. I believe in my professional experience, 40 years of coaching and over 25, 30, almost 30 years of performance mindset coaching, character, attitude, and behavior, along with a synergy culture based on values, is the ultimate decider. If you do not have a good culture, a shared values culture that the team doesn't believe in and they don't believe in each other, they can pick each other up without the coach having to do it when they fall. That's how we won this championship at Colby College. They had a solid culture. They had good leadership. They believed in each other. They weren't the best team, right? But they won because of their character, because of their ability to come together, right? Talent was there, but I believe the character, attitude, and behavior was the single greatest piece that pushed a lot of these teams I've worked with. Two national championships for a junior team in Virginia, a baseball championship at Canisius College, twice in a small college, smaller than any other school in their Atlantic division. They've won the championship twice in the last 7 years. Why? Character, attitude, and behavior. And the coach really believes in the culture. So I believe it's a missing dynamic, John. A lot of times what leaders what they depend too much on skill and ability. And I'm not discounting that. We need skill and ability, but you want good people. If you have good people with a strong, unified, synergistic culture, you're going places. You're going
Absolutely.
places.
I love that because again, there's so many different coaches that we would read about. There's a few Lou Holtz books up above my shoulder as well that
Yeah.
talk about it. He knew he had to have good players, But if he didn't have those with the right attitude that we're going to give for the team, sacrifice, make that
Coachable
happen, it's
too.
going to be very difficult to win. John Wooden is another. Nick
Yeah.
Saban. Yeah,
John Wooden talks about being coachable, right?
sure. Absolutely. Use movies to influence your coaching as well or to pick up coaching tips.
Absolutely. I use clips all the time. Yeah, absolutely. I love taking little snippets out of movies to send to my athletes. But if you
Yeah.
look at my Facebook page, you'll see all kinds of memes that I created from movies and motivational tips and authors. Wooden, I've got Ziegler. I've got all kind. I post memes on my Facebook
Mm-hmm.
page, my Instagram pages all the time. I'm doing it daily. And I also have now we have all these different things that they have now, John. Group me, right? Now we got
Oh
group
yeah.
me. So I have to group me with all my teams that I'm working with the leadership. I work with coaches. I work with what I call a leadership council, and then I work with a team. So I have three different pockets
Oh
within
wow.
an
Okay.
organization, and I bring them together as a unified organization. So on the podcast, on the group me section, there's the coaches and the leaders. I don't really work with the team too much there, but I send stuff to my leaders all the time, and I take stuff out of my books. And another book that basically is also available is Increase Your Grit and Mental Toughness.
Okay.
That's yeah, so that's another book that's going to be available and is now available. It should be available on Amazon for anybody that wants to look at that element of being able to build. And it's not just a sports book. You need grit and mental toughness to live your life, to have success in life. I would think it's probably one of the most single factors that most people miss, and that is that element of grit to be able to get through the tough times in life.
I think I look at this again. I'll make sure to put a link to your Facebook page and to your author page,
Thank
as
you.
well as the books in the show notes, so that folks can go out and learn more about those things. But again, just so much in terms of sports influence. I know one of the ones I was just talking with somebody a couple of days ago, a mentor of mine, was the Miracle on Ice movie in the story of the 1980, the U.S. Olympic hockey team. Always a great inspirational, and there's all kind of clips from inside of that movie that just play an important part. And to see those, championship rings from Notre Dame and working with those teams, pretty awesome, no doubt about it. What other authors have influenced you in your writing style and leadership as well?
Oh wow. Like I mean, I've got a lot of
Yeah,
books
that
that
was a
I read.
softball. As I'm leading you up there
Yeah,
with your top
yeah.
20 over
I
there.
mean, holy
Absolutely.
smoking potatoes. It's to me, John Maxwell, I'm also a certified John Maxwell. Went to his training and I really love John Maxwell and a lot of his material. I like guys like Dungy and I like a book that I really enjoyed was Jocko Willink, Extreme
Mhm.
Ownership. I I do like some of the John Gordon books, as well as Patrick Lencioni. Patrick Lencioni has two or three books that are really, really good. So to me, I try to find books that would help me to really grow my thought process towards my craft, my trade. But again, I go from business to sports to parenting and marriage,
Sure.
right? So my wife and I are both certified behaviorists with personality insights. So we work with married couples and families as well, and that's why this book is Communicate to Connect is for parents. We're so interested in helping parents, our daughters and their young families, helping them to communicate. We're getting phone calls from our daughters all the time. Okay, this is happening. What should we say? What should we do? My wife is so good at being able to translate what she needs to say and how she needs to say it to help them communicate to their family and their kids and their spouses, right? It's really
Sure.
important. And so to me, I think, those are some of the guys. I mean, one of the earliest books that I loved that I started was The Magic of Thinking Big, David Schwartz. I often go back to that book and try to, again, I'm a growth mindset guy, so those types of books really appeal to me. And then I have some other like Andy Andrews, which is books that has
Love
stories
his
and
stuff.
connected to,
That's
yeah,
another
Andy
one. The
Andrews.
gift, the book I've given the most, The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. There's still a couple
Right,
extra copies
right.
up there that have been given to me as well. Phenomenal author. Great.
Yeah,
Love his story
yeah.
writing techniques. I also see another one there, Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. So
Yep.
faith must play an important part of your journey as well.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So yeah, the Bible. I work with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I
Okay.
work with Athletes in Action. But Rick Randazzo in the hockey division and he has a school now that he works at, doing some great work with young men, preparing them for college, their college careers, and for life after college. bringing the gospel message into their lives. It's a big part of my life. I'm a born again Christian, so our faith is front and center in what we do, and we believe in people for who they are and how they were created. And that's why I love the personality profiles, because it really gets down to the
Mhm.
meat and potatoes of who you are, how you were created. Now let's put that to good use. Let's make that work for you to become that person of influence. And really, the communication to connect is that whole platinum rule is, basically to teach, communicate what other people want. Like, you want to help them get what they want. And that's a good feeling when you have that. You've been able, and the nice thing that you're not looking for, but you're going to get, are the rewards. You get phone calls, and you got emails, and you got letters. And I've been blessed to be able to certify. I certify people in the language of human behavior, level 1 DISC and level 2, so you can become a certified behaviorist like myself. So I actually certify people in that. So I've helped probably about 40 or 50 people do that. And to watch their careers take off, John, is a real blessing for me. To be able to see them. I think of one, just that this lady was kind of trapped. She was kind of stuck in a career that was going nowhere. They weren't recognizing her for who she was, and her name is Tracy Eldridge. And my goodness gracious, I said, Tracy, you need to start your own business. You need to get out on your own, start your own business, and start to share with people your passion for helping people and making a difference. Well, John, she's done that now, and she is such in demand. It's incredible. I'm so proud of her for what she's
Good.
done. And I can give you a number of other dozen people that I've helped certify, and they've just grabbed it and ran with it. Like Dr. Rome did for me when I received this certification and training. It just changed everything. Learning how to communicate, connect with people, right, is really about knowing people at their core, why and how they were created, connect them to their passion, and help them to speak their language. Everybody has their own language. You have your own language. I have my own language according to your personality. And it's all based and founded in your basic need. I call it, if you feed the basic need, you're feeding the beast. And if you feed
Hmm.
the beast will never eat you.
Love that. Love that. Probably you probably just stole my last question from you, but I just got a couple more. I want to honor your time. It's been a great
Sure.
conversation, and I
Yeah,
know
no
we could go on
problem.
forever. When we get the next book, if you want to bring that one out again, that we can talk about it more. I'll be ready for that as well when your next one comes out. But how do you want folks
Thank you,
to get
John.
in touch with you? You mentioned your Facebook page. How else do they want? How else do you want them to find you and learn more about you and connect with you?
Well, with each of my books, I like them to be purposeful. Thanks for the question, by the way. So Communicate to Connect actually is the book, but it's also the workshop. Um, Grit and Mental Toughness is the book, but it's also the workshop. The next book I'm coming out with is Performance Influencer. It's the book, but it's also the workshop. For each book that I create, there's a 2 to 3 hour workshop that goes along with that. So you can actually dive in, and we go really deep. We really go deep into, okay, what I like about books that I read is if they give me the what, the how, and the why.
Hmm.
Many books that we read, John, and you know this, is that we read the books and they tell us what to do, but they don't tell us how to do it. That was a real pet peeve of mine. So all my books that I write, I won't give you everything, but I'm going to give you a good degree of how to do what you need to do. And then I suggest actually in the book that you can connect with me and actually go and look for me and say, okay, let's have let's have a time together. Let's actually work together on a workshop, and you can do that. And again, you have to make the investment. If you don't make the investment, right? You're not going to make a change. If you don't make a change, you're not going to change. So to me, it's really about, yes, purchase the book, buy the book, all by all means. I would love that you do that. Leave a review, which would help me greatly. But engage in some of the training that I have available. If you really are interested in becoming that person of influence, increasing your connection power, your leadership, your grit and mental toughness, then look to take some of the courses with me and to help allow me to help you to become the better version of yourself. So www.performancemindsetcoach.com is my website, www.performancemindsetcoach.com. And you can see me on Facebook under the name Gordon MacFarlane. And send me a friendship request and let me know that you heard me on John's podcast. And I love the whole title, the uncommon leader, right? That we want to be uncommon. We don't want to
Hmm.
be an ordinary leader, because I think leadership in the past has been selected by, well, you're really good at what you do. Let's make you the leader. Well, that's proven to be a disaster more times than not. Like, I think the strongest element, would be for leadership would be, I think, in my opinion, I'd love to get your opinion, John, but I think communication is one of those things. Communication and influence for a leader is quintessential. I would say that those are two of the biggest. If I had to add a third one, communication, influence, and responsibility would be the three things that I would say in leadership. What are your thoughts? Do you share
Well,
that
I mean, you talk
sentiment, or
about
do you have
the
others?
skills. I mean, taking responsibility, right? That awareness that we talked about. Communication is, frankly, it's a skill that will not go away. And you mentioned influence. That's right out of John Maxwell. Leadership is influence, nothing
Yeah,
more, nothing less.
yeah.
Look, I mean, there's so many different pieces. For me, I talk about inspiring, encouraging, and equipping. And if we can do those three things, we can go a long way with regards to the development and growth of leaders that can grow teams, that can grow communities, and ultimately in our churches, in our world. I mean, I know that we can make a difference. And Gordon MacFarlane, I know you're making a difference. I appreciate you investing the time with the listeners of the Uncommon Leader podcast. I do have that one final question that I want to ask you. You're going to get a chance to have the last word here, and I want you to take a look. I'm gonna give you a billboard. You can post it wherever you want to. What's the message you're going to put on that billboard, and why do you put that message on there?
Hmm. Well, first of all, I want to say to you, we could probably stay on this podcast for
I
another
know
two
we
hours.
could.
We have so much
Yes.
in common, which I really appreciate about you. So to me, I think as we have a purpose in life, right? What's your calling? What's your unique purpose in life? What's your purpose, your cause, your belief? Find out who you are. Discover yourself from the truest sense of who you are from your personality, and let's get together and let's talk about what your purpose is and how you can become that very special and unique person of influence, right? Everybody has a gift. Everybody has what I call a value proposition, what you bring to the table. Whatever your value proposition is, let's find out what that is and let's maximize the potential.
Hmm.
Let's maximize the potential of who you were meant to be and make a difference and make some changes in your life to make a difference in the lives of other people and live your legacy. Live your legacy.
Love that, Coach Gord. Thanks so much. Thanks for sharing
Thank you, John.
with the listeners, and I'm sure it's going to add value to those that are listening. Looking forward to seeing what you grow in. Okay.
Thank you, sir. I hope your podcast gets a major blessing, and it's a real pleasure to meet you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.